The White House not too happy with the fact that the Cohen testimony, which was already delayed 3 times, was then scheduled for the same day as the president's historic summit in Vietnam. But the administration did point out yesterday that the president would be watching what unfolded in the House Oversight Committee. Moments ago, I asked Kellyanne Conway about that, and breaking news tonight on the new approach to a deal with North Korea. Here now, Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president. Kellyanne, good evening to you. Did the president watch the testimony today of Michael Cohen?
Well, he's aware of the testimony. As you know, there's a 12-hour time difference, and the president is embarking on a major historic second summit today, so he'll be well rested for that and fully engaged. So you don't know if he watched or not? I think he's seen parts of it, absolutely. I don't know that anybody who watched it for all 9 straight hours. I certainly didn't. I was busy here today, but I saw plenty of it. And I think also, Martha, I mean, the one thing I would really say to everyone is that this goes beyond, reminding everybody that Michael Cohen has lied before. It's also the things that he's saying don't comport with somebody who was bragging about and trying to enrich himself while Donald Trump was president based on his connection with the president and his belief in those president's policies and actions. So there's a lot of, I think, revisionist history here for Mr. Cohen in his testimony today as well.
I have a couple other questions that I do want to ask you. Elijah Cummings, when he came out, he said that it appears that the president did commit a crime while he was in office based on the checks that everyone was shown that the president wrote while he was president to cover that expense and repay Michael Cohen.
And the operative words there is "it appears." In other words, if this were actually a court proceeding, if this were a trial, there would have been cross-examination. I haven't practiced law in many years, but I would have said to Mr. Cohen, you see this check? Did you ever receive another check like this? It was the only check. What did those checks say? What were they for?
Well, he said he was going to produce all 11 checks that add up to $130,000.
Not for that. No, Martha, my point is not for that alleged transaction, but over the course of his time in working for the Trump organization. In other words, was this a pattern and practice for somebody who was in the employ to receive retainer checks or be reimbursed for other expenses? I think it proves nothing, and here's why. Michael Cohen admitted today that the president never directed him to lie, never directed him, that he, quote, spoke in code. And that if you're around the president long enough, you know what the president is asking you to do without him asking you to do it. That's a bunch of nonsense to someone who's been around the president every single day for 3 straight years now. He's pretty direct. You see him most days with the media. He's very direct.
Well, then let me ask you this question. Is the president concerned about this investigation that we did learn a little bit more about today with regards to the Southern District of New York, looking into financial improprieties, and Alan Weisselberg, his former CFO, who is a cooperating witness in that case?
Look, the Democrats are after 3 things today. They're saying that the president knew about the Trump Tower meeting. They're saying that he knew about WikiLeaks from Roger Stone's report. They've all said that's not true, and that this hush money was somehow meant to, there was a worry that it would affect the election. Where is the evidence of that? Martha, you had so many false accusers coming out, as you know, every single day the president talking about them, then being interviewed at length on networks and cable stations, giving them some kind of credibility.
I understand all that, but I'm asking you about a separate question. I'm asking you about whether or not the president or the White House is concerned about the outstanding criminal investigation that is ongoing into the president in the Southern District of New York.
It's nothing that concerns me or that I work on here any day of the week at the White House. Martha, I know the president has said there'd be a red line involved in delving into his finances for no legitimate reason. And you heard Mr. Cohen today. He said he's in constant contact, quote unquote, with the Southern District. And so we'll see what happens there. But remember, this all started as a hunt for collusion with Russia. And the chief witness today for the Democrats, indeed, I'd say for the 2020 Democrats, since they were busy raising money off of the testimony today while it was happening, the chief argument that they made that there was collusion with Russia was not proven today, and Mr. Cohen himself said today he has no evidence of that.
That is true. Last question. Susan Rice wrote that the president could learn some lessons from the Iran deal, which the president has railed against. She said the United States and North Korea will need to agree on a series of steps that would build mutual confidence as part of a roadmap to full denuclearization. The model for this approach, anathema as it is to Mr. Trump, is the Iran nuclear negotiations. And tonight we're learning that there is, according to some reporting, no longer a demand on the part of U.S. negotiators for a full accounting of nuclear and ballistic missiles. Is that accurate?
The president said this is a process, Martha. Nobody expects that they're going to walk away tomorrow with a complete deal on the complete denuclearization, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. This is a process. These countries have been at war for 70 years. They've been building up their nuclear capability. I would have to push back on Ms. Rice, though. The president is the one who took us out of the Iran deal. He thought it was a horrible deal for this country and for our friend Israel, and I don't know that he would use that as a model. Also, she's just somebody who lied about what happened in Benghazi. She said it was because of a videotape, went on 5 Sunday shows and lied about that. So thanks for the advice, but I think the president will continue forward with the summit today with Chairman Kim. While sanctions remain in place, Martha, nobody's kidding themselves. If North Korea is not going to denuclearize, that is the demand that's on the table from this president. And in return, maybe there's some economic development for North Koreans if, in fact, their chairman does what he says he's going to do or does what the president is demanding that he do. But thanks for even covering Vietnam in this historic second summit, because I don't even know that we deserve a split screen of events today. What the president is doing, I mean, 2 months from now, the president's going to be sitting in the Oval Office. Michael Cohen is going to be sitting in jail. So I think the split screen was overdone today by most in the media.
Kellyanne Conway, thank you very much, Kellyanne. Good to speak with you tonight.
This is a Fox News Alert. Good evening, good morning here in Vietnam. I'm Brett Baer. We are again coming to you halfway around the world in Hanoi, Vietnam, where the second summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un ended in a very different fashion than the first, without an agreement this time. President Trump says he was not willing to give in to North Korea's demand that the U.S. lift all sanctions without an ironclad promise from Kim to eliminate its nuclear arsenal. The North Koreans held an extremely rare press conference a few hours ago to say they only wanted some of the sanctions lifted to get rid of its biggest nuclear site. The two leaders canceled a scheduled lunch and signing ceremony today. Back home, both Democrats and Republicans were giving the president varying degrees of credit for not giving in. But in South Korea's capital, the collapse of the talks was viewed with real disappointment. We have Fox team coverage. Greg Talcott is in Seoul, South Korea, where the country's news agency says the security situation has now turned back to zero. From the Trump administration, resolve about this decision and perhaps optimism about the future, even without another meeting set up on the calendar. We start off here in Hanoi with Chief White House correspondent John Roberts. Hello, John.
Brett, good morning to you. We are now in a game of dueling diplomatic narratives, with both sides blaming the other for the failure of the second U.S.-North Korea summit, and President Trump getting some support from an unlikely corner. The body language between President Trump and Kim Jong-un looked promising. But when it came down to the nuts and bolts of negotiation, President Trump walked away from the table.
I could have signed an agreement today, and then you people would have said, oh, what a terrible deal, what a terrible thing he did. No, you have to be prepared to walk.
Kim Jong-un offered to close the sprawling Yongbyon nuclear facility, the prime source of fissile material for North Korea's nuclear weapons program. But in exchange, according to President Trump, he wanted all of the sanctions against the regime lifted.
The Yongbyon facility and all of its scope, which is important for sure, still leaves missiles, still leaves warheads and weapon systems.
They were willing to denuke a large portion of the areas that we wanted, but we couldn't give up all of the sanctions for that.
At a rare midnight press conference in Hanoi, North Korea's foreign minister disputed the president's claim, insisting Kim made a realistic proposal.
What we proposed was not the removal of all sanctions, but their partial removal. The United States insisted that we should take one more step besides the dismantlement of nuclear facilities in Yongbyon area. Therefore, it became crystal clear that the United States was not ready to accept our proposal.
In an even more rare moment of agreement with the president, the Democratic leadership said he was right to walk away. Chuck Schumer tweeting, a deal that fell short of complete denuclearization would have only made North Korea stronger and the world less safe. And this from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Really, it's good that the president did not give him anything for the little that he was proposing.
It would typically be unheard of for an American president to travel halfway around the world to make a deal, then have it fall apart. but there is no playbook for a leader-to-leader engagement with North Korea.
I think everyone had hoped we could do just a little bit better, but the departure was with an agreement that we would continue to work on what has been an incredibly difficult problem.
What comes next is unclear. President Trump says the summit came to a premature close on friendly terms.
This wasn't a walk away like you get up and walk out. No, this was very friendly. We shook hands.
The president continued his praise of Kim Jong-un and at one point appeared to absolve him of any complicity in the death of Otto Warmbier.
I don't believe he knew about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly, but he knew the case very well, but he knew it later.
But even lawmakers who backed the president's decision to walk away from the table found that one hard to swallow.
That'd be a lie. Kim Jong lied. I mean, he had to know. Nothing happens in that country without him knowing.
While both sides are expected to keep talking, President Trump made no prediction as to when the next summit with Kim Jong-un might be. The president said at his press conference it could be soon, maybe not for a long time. Certainly something for Kim to think about. Brett?
John Roberts just down the road here in Hanoi. John, thanks. Conservatives from all over the country are in suburban Washington tonight for their annual conference known as CPAC. Correspondent Doug McElway is live tonight in National Harbor, Maryland, to tell us the big topic is what the Democrats are doing to each other.
At a time of historically low unemployment and economic expansion, conservatives see advantage in the leftward lurch of the Democratic Party. The latest example, the Green New Deal.
To pay for the Green Deal, all you need to do is just keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. This is such a naive thought in the world of debt that I can't even respond to it.
The left tilt is a target-rich environment, say conservatives, from the alleged hoaxes of Jesse Smollett, the Covington kids, the embrace of late-term abortions, the scandals in Virginia Democratic politics, to the recent discovery of a 1980s Bernie Sanders quote about the goodness of food lines.
In other countries, people don't line up for food. The rich get the food and the poor starve to death.
Bernie Sanders that was talking about it's good to be in line to wait for food. We've got to get to a point where we celebrate capitalism.
And that is the other theme of CPAC this year.
3% growth as far as the eye can see. It's the hottest economy in the world. And I'll let the ankle biters just bite our ankles.
Confronting those successes is a sober demographic reality. Polls suggesting millennials are embracing socialism and a far-left agenda.
This is now a voting issue across the country. The green generation has risen up.
That while the GOP remains older and largely white. CPAC organizers are intent on changing that. This breakout session with young minorities, many facing daunting peer pressure, is one example.
You have people come up to you and tell you that you hate yourself and you're an Uncle Tom.
But Joel Patrick is preaching conservatism to his 250,000 Instagram followers, while Hayden Williams, invited to CPAC after he was punched out for being a conservative at UC Berkeley, kept his camera rolling.
I'm sure probably 10 million people have seen it.
Republicans have been late in embracing social media, but they are doing it now, fully cognizant that it is the way to reach a new generation of voters. Brett?
Doug McElway live at CPAC in National Harbor, Maryland. Doug, thanks.